I'm sorry. I don't normally do videos reacting to content on social media. Half the time it's botted, half the time it's just fake outrage, half the time it doesn't matter to the grand scheme of things. But when I seen this post, I had to say something. This is probably the biggest massive L I've ever seen a company take. Now, granted, love him or hate him, I'm extremely indifferent when it comes to PETA. Having family, a lot of family members around me, a lot of friends and whatnot that are actively involved in different shelters and caretaking for different animals and whatnot. I've never really had a good experience with PETA. And granted, I think they're sort of a company that has the worst marketing department because typically whenever you do hear about PETA, it's because they do something incredibly stupid, something very grotesque, something shocking to get people's attention. And most of the time, reactions from people around me and myself it's always like, I don't think that's the win you think it is. I don't think you're really garnering attention. I don't think that's a positive reaction you're getting from people. And this is just another example of it. This is another example of PETA coming out and honestly throwing something at a fandom that is very wholesome. Now, granted, I'm not like super into the Uma Musume group, but I do know from the outsider's perspective, like, this is a fandom that is extremely wholesome. This is a fandom that loves their horses, and through seeing a lot of the different things that the fandom itself does and what Uma Musume as a brand sort of, promotes and supports, it's like the worst group you can come after as PETA. Now, don't get me wrong here. It's not that I'm ignoring the message that PETA has here. There's a legitimate statement they have here, and it's the idea that, yes, the horses on the horse track are getting injured. And yes, if anybody knows horses, if they break a leg, it's not really something they come back from. It's just, it doesn't have anything to do with racing in general. A horse loses a leg, they're done for. That's the same for a lot of different animals. But the problem, again, comes down to bare bones messaging. They always fail at messaging. They don't get the right words out. So maybe their hope is just that one Uma Musume enjoyer goes, oh yeah, that's right. I am enjoying this thing that is technically feeding into horse racing, and they do technically have to put these horses down when they get injured. But again, because their messaging sucks, nobody's looking at that. They're just looking at the fact that they're attacking their fandom. They're putting a message into their fandom. They don't want that. I want to enjoy my horses. And my horses, I love my horses. And I want to root for my horses. That's all they care about. Now, granted, again, they're achieving exactly what I think this group does over and over again, and that is to create a shock around something just to gain attention to themselves. They're putting this out here to upset a group or to cause a stir so that people, I guess one or two people that see it will go, oh, they're actually right, and they'll come towards them and actually accept them. But again, most of the time, I think it's just really, it just backfires every single time. And I'm really happy that despite this getting a massive amount of attention, it's already been community noted, so it's not going to make them any money. But we'll get into sort of why that's a good thing, I guess, for them in the future. There is a positive to them getting community noted, and we'll get into that in a minute. But they've gotten massively community noted, and it was in their post that they posted saying, if Uma Musume Pretty Derby were honest, your favorite horse girl doesn't get a comeback. One failed event, and the race is over forever, just like the real Silent Suzuka. Yeah, and of course, a lot of people already pointed out that, it's, Uma Musume, these are horse girls, they're based off of real horses, their history and whatnot they go through is typically very close to the original story of the horse that they're actually based off of, but yeah, it's also not the right it's not the right limb, and the girl herself can technically continue because it wasn't the limb, that kind of crap that people are already kind of, community noting it for, but it's not been pretty for them. As you can see here, the ratio is unreal. The ratio is unreal. 7.2 million views. You have 2,000 likes, but almost 6K retweets and 6K comments. That's a massive, massive ratio, insane ratio. But yes, I think the thing that most people are pointing out here is that, again, the positivity that I think the Uma Musume fandom has done for these horses. For those who don't know, I don't know why you wouldn't know, Uma Musume Pretty Derby, the IP itself, it's based off of a mobile game they did. And the mobile game is sort of this collaboration with real horses where they essentially have these horses that are in the racetracks in real life. They make anime girl versions of them. that play out stories. And yes, typically a lot of those stories are based off the real horse. I mean, a good example is Urara. She has never really won a race, and so a lot of her story is around the fact that she's an absolute failure and that she's seeking to have that first race. She's the ultimate underdog, and thus, as this was in the story, in the game, people started to go in the racetrack and started supporting her, and they were sending her feed and everything. Like, people were donating to support her. She became this horse that nobody even knew, that nobody cared about. And technically there was a concept behind there and a fandom behind there already, but it created a bigger fandom behind it. And there's a lot of other efforts that has actually come from the support that fans have through what they've learned from the game itself. You have lots of cases where there's massive fundraisers that are built around the idea of supporting these horses, especially after retirement. People are actively donating money to these different farms and whatnot that actually take care of the horses after they've retired. There's so much love that Uma Musume itself has created around these horses, and it's just like, why would you go in here and actively take this L? Why would you come in here into this space and try to make some sort of comment about this when you're just going to look bad? And then you also have the fact that technically PETA themselves have essentially funded into racetracks. Now, yes, they do claim it's all for the effort so they can change the rules. They can get on the boards and thus put votes in to, get them rest time and prevent them from using drugs on the horses and stuff like that. But you're still being a part of it. You're still being a part of something that you claim is forcing horses to race for our entertainment. It just goes back to the whole fact of, like, you're not going to win in this argument, and why are you even getting involved with it? Again, you can love or hate PETA. You like what they do. You support the animals and whatnot, but you can't argue that they like to shoot themselves in the foot all the damn time. But yes, the big thing that obviously a lot of people are kind of pointing out here is that this is probably going to land them in deep water because of how protective this brand is for what they're doing. They have an entire fan creation guidelines right here. And yes, this post is technically breaking, I think, 4 of these rules. That if you want to create any sort of content around Uma Musume, these are the restrictions. And if you break these rules, you put yourself up for some sort of, takedown or possible legal liability. And yes, if you look at the list here, the first one is works made with the intent to injure the reputation of the franchise or other third parties. Yep, that one covers that one. Number 2, work of violent or otherwise obscene nature. Yes, this is violent. You got number 2 right there. You broke 2 already. Works that advocate or criticize political views, religion, ideology, or use the derivative works for their purpose. I think that technically falls upon it, so that's 3. Works that involve illegal activities or other inappropriate conduct. Probably not. Works that infringe upon the rights of third party. I guess if you want to call it that, but probably not. Works or activities intended for commercial profit. Again, like I said earlier, that was technically making money. That post itself was technically making them revenue until it got community noted, which I think at that point it's supposed to drop it off of there, but they intended for that. You could say there's an intent there before the actual community note happened. And then number 7, works or use of derivative works that might otherwise be deemed inappropriate and when taken in the context of this list. Yeah. I think, again, they pretty much broke every single one of these guidelines, and again, does technically put them in the crosshairs of Cygames and Uma Musume for some sort of legal action. Now, do I see them having legal action taken upon them? No. I literally don't. I don't see them wasting their money going after PETA for this whole thing. Now, I think as this gets more and more attention, it may actually facilitate it. The idea that this gets so much attention, and if they don't do any action on it, it sort of just put them in the realms of them not protecting their IP like they claim. So essentially, if later on somebody does something that's more impactful to the brand, to the Uma Musume property, to the horses, whatever, which, yes, technically by them doing what they're doing, they have to protect these properties because they have gotten the consent of these owners of the horses and they're making them into characters. If they don't defend that, they risk losing the license to be able to use those horses in their properties. If, Billy Bob has his horse and they want it to be a part of Uma Musume, they're doing that with the understanding that they're going to protect that character and thus that name and that property. So if they don't protect it now, somebody else can do something worse and they'll look back here and say, well, you didn't protect it here. Why are you only choosing to protect it now? So there's a little bit of a precedence being set there if they don't take action. But again, I don't necessarily see them actually doing anything. But we'll see. We'll see. But anyways, I just want to cover this. I found it kind of slightly funny. At the same time, I think it's kind of BS, and rightfully so. It's getting a lot of hate, and another L for PETA, unfortunately. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button below. If you like this content, you want to support it, become a member. Until next time, you'll take care.